In today's video, I'll be walking you through the steps of how I created the sectional perspective using Revit, Illustrator, and Photoshop. To begin with, I'll open my Revit file. You mustn't use the exact software I'm using to achieve similar results. I'll say just having Photoshop and any 3D modeling software will be just fine. The Illustrator step can be skipped entirely, but I just prefer that process. This model is supposed to be a unit of a terrace house. As you can see, the building has 3 floors and a single sloped roof. First of all, I'll navigate to my ground floor plane. Using detail lines, I'll draw some guidelines for aligning the camera because I want the view to look straight from the midpoint, like a box in 1 point perspective, if you know what that looks like. Then I'll select the camera tool from this 3D drop down. Click and drag to where I want my camera view to stop. You should open up the camera view I just created. I'll adjust the crop boundaries to fit the entire model. Here I'm going back to align the camera. I'm using the guidelines I drew earlier with detail line. I'll make sure that the red part, which is the camera target and the camera icon, are on a straight line. Then I'll go back to my camera view and readjust the crop boundaries. Go to the properties panel and check section box. Then select the section box from the view, navigate to the floor plan and cut the model. Next, I'll adjust the camera height to something more reasonable. Here I'm using 5.4 meters as my camera height and target height. The section in Revit is ready for export. Before exporting, I always place all my views on sheets because it makes it easier to resize later in other softwares. Typically, I use an A3 landscape sheet for most of my drawings. You can either export to PDF or DWG format. For PDF export, you can just go to the PDF icon or type Ctrl P on your keyboard, select the sheet you want to export, adjust other settings and export. I prefer using DWG because I can export with layers and just open that file in Illustrator with all line works already separated in different layers. But in some scenarios where the camera angles are more in an awkward position, the DWG file formats can be unable to capture all the details. In such cases, I use both DWG and PDF, then I merge the 2 file types in Illustrator. For exporting DWG, you go to File, Export, Card Format, DWG, select the sheet for export and export. Since I had done this project a while ago, I couldn't find some of the assets I used. After opening up the DWG file in Illustrator, this window appears. Then I select Scale to Fit Artboard. As you can see, everything is already separated by layers and colors, which makes it easier to work in Illustrator. To change the color of all the lines, I type Ctrl A, then I go to Properties panel and change the stroke to black. Select the layer for fills and repeat the process. This time, change the fill to black. Here I'm just using the curvature tool to draw out a shape for the ground floor cut. I just go through all the layers, selecting different elements and changing their line width. For this particular drawing, the cut lines of the walls and floors are the boldest, followed by the projection lines of walls and floors. I made the line width of the furniture and other items inside the building the lightest. Here I'm going into the railing layer with the curvature tool to draw out some of the glass. You can also use the pen tool for this. Then I'll change the fill to blue. After I'm done adjusting all line weight and fills, I type Ctrl A to select all and Ctrl C to copy. Open an empty Photoshop file, type Ctrl V to paste. Choose Smart Object from the pop-up that appears. That makes it possible to update the Photoshop file if the Illustrator one was also updated. After the drawing has been placed, I start adding people cutouts and background to improve the composition. I'll be using this particular set of cutouts. Since my cutouts are in a Photoshop file, I can just copy and paste them into my drawing. If yours are stored somewhere in your computer, you can place them by going to File, Place Linked or Embedded, and choose the file from its location. For accurate scale and proportion, I'm using elements in my drawing to guess the sizes of the cutout. You can leave the cutout as it is, but for this drawing I'll fill it out with black. To do that, hold Ctrl and click on the thumbnail of one cutout to select it. Then hold Ctrl plus Shift to select the other thumbnails to add to that selection. Go to the bottom of the window below the layer panel. Click on the half-filled circle, that's the adjustment layer. Select the solid color on the menu. This fills the shape with any color you choose. Here I'm going to use a grayish dark color. For organization's sake, I'll group the cutouts into a folder. I don't really need the cutouts again, so I can just hide that. I'll select the fill layer to adjust its opacity and color. For the background, I'll be using this sky image. So I'll copy and paste it into my file. Then I'll move the image below every other thing in the drawing. Then I'll make a selection of the building to mask it out of the sky image. You can do this by selecting the polygon select tool and drawing over the building. Click on the marks tool, which is the rectangle with a circle inscribed in it. Invert the marks by selecting it and typing Ctrl-I. I'll start painting the marks layer to reduce the opacity on areas around the building, like creating an ombre effect but with opacity. Using the brush tool, I'll paint with black to hide and white to reveal. I also turn down the opacity of the sky later to something like 40%, then change the blend mode to luminosity. I'll go back to painting the max layer, but this time with a textured brush. I'm using a brush that has a splatter-like texture. This is what the final result of the process looks like. I did not record some finishing touches like changing the colors of the walls and floors. I also added faint blue lights to the lamps and some hanging plants to the walls. Thank you for staying true to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you on the next one.